Thank you so much for your continued leadership on this. And Senator Gardner, it's nice to see you as well. Um, every 60 seconds, an average of 27 girls under the age of 18 are married around the world. That means that over the course of this hearing alone, 400 girls will get married someplace in the world. As child brides and likely child mothers, these girls often drop out of school, their economic opportunities are limited, and they have an increased risk, as Senator Boxer just said, of very serious health concerns from violence and sexually transmitted disease, particularly HIV/AIDS. This does not bode well for U.S. foreign policy objectives. The United States is working so hard to increase the participation of women across the board, including in the formal workforce, because we know that women's full participation is good for women, it's also good for their families, and it's really important for their countries and the stability of their countries. But child marriage is a major barrier to that participation. It strips girls of their ability to learn and contribute to their societies and their economies. In fact, this issue does the exact opposite of what we'd like to see around the world. Married girls are less likely to send their own children to school and to get them immunized. That means that instead of advancing prosperity, this practice fuels cycles of poverty that we're trying to address. When you consider that child marriage is a reality for more than 700 million women and girls alive today, it's clear this issue matters to policymakers, to development practitioners, and to foreign policy experts alike. In short, if our goal is to promote peace, security, and prosperity in countries around the world by empowering women, then ending child marriage is an absolute imperative. In order for us to tackle this problem, it's important to understand why it happens in the first place. Traditional gender roles, poverty, violence, and insecurity all fuel this practice. And each of these drivers, whether it's economic, cultural, or social, can be made worse by state fragility, conflict, and humanitarian emergencies. As my colleague, Assistant Secretary Richard, will go into this in a little bit more detail, but I'd like to underline the point that the problem of child marriage is often exacerbated by armed conflict and instability. In conflict settings, families may view marriage as a way to keep their daughters safe, as in the example, Mr. Chairman, that you talked about, or to lessen economic distress. And we see that violent actors, including rebel or insurgent groups, can force women and girls into marriage. For terrorist groups like Daesh and Boko Haram, child marriage is a depraved tactic. They use it to terrorize and control entire populations and to recruit new fighters. Reports indicate that Daesh has abducted more than 3,000 women and girls, including those from Iraq's religious community of Yazidis and other minority groups. Girls as young as 12 or 13 have been forced to marry violent extremists or sold to the highest bidder, sometimes repeatedly, like cattle at an auction. And in Nigeria, more than 200 schoolgirls kidnapped by Boko Haram in Chibok are still missing. Which brings us to the question of how we can end this harmful practice once and for all. The fact is, there is no single driver of child marriage, and that means there is no single solution, no silver bullet that can address this issue once and for all. That's why the United States takes a holistic approach to address the range of challenges that influence this issue, from health and safety to education and economic opportunity to the rights of women and girls around the world. The policy foundation of this work is strong. Child marriage is addressed in the 3 interagency policies that we can talk about today, and that includes the first ever strategy on adolescent girls that Senator Durbin referred to earlier and that we discussed in the previous hearing. That strategy was made possible by the strong support of civil society and by members of Congress, and we are very proud that other agencies, including USAID, the Peace Corps, the Millennium Challenge Corporation, as well as PEPFAR, are an important part of this effort. These agencies are also part of the Let Girls Learn initiative, because while there is no simple answer, we do know and we believe strongly that the single most important thing we can do is keep girls in a quality education for as long as possible. Under this initiative, President Obama launched a challenge fund to design new holistic programs for adolescent girls. These programs will be created, funded, tested, and implemented by the USAID and the State Department in partnership with a full spectrum of stakeholders in select focus countries. And again, I'd like to thank members of the committee for their support of this effort. We're starting in Malawi, Tanzania, and the other day the President announced that we would also take this approach in Nepal and Laos. This initiative is an opportunity to bring the full weight of the U.S. government to bear on the issue of adolescent girls and to do it in a way that is smart, comprehensive, and coordinated. But I do want to emphasize that our efforts are also community-focused, because we will not adequately address this challenge without partnering on the local level with political and tribal leaders, families, and most importantly, the girls themselves. Earlier this year, I met a young filmmaker named Tinbit Daniel from Ethiopia, which is a country with one of the highest rates of child marriage in the world. Tinbit created an animated series that shows strong men in respectful relationships with women. She's using art to combat gender-based violence. And she isn't alone. She's part of a growing movement of young people who are rewriting their own story, of their generation. They're working so that young men are seen as more than perpetrators of violence, and young women are seen as more than victims. That's the kind of future we can create when everyone, girls and boys, men and women, have the freedom, the rights, and the tools they need to reach their full potential. The State Department is committed to making this a reality for girls around the world, because we know that when these girls are empowered, their communities are safer, their economies are stronger, and their countries are more likely to reach their full potential. So thank you again very much for your leadership on this issue. It's critical to our efforts, and we really very much appreciate it, and look forward to the conversation.